Hello, this is Dr. Sarah Williams, and this is Dr. Sarah After Dark. As you know, Dr. Sarah After Dark is committed to bringing light to darkness and ending the mental health stigma. One of the things that we do at Dr. Sarah After Dark is we allow known individuals to come on our show and share their story of perseverance, of overcoming, and how they can cope and bring resilience in light of tragedy. Today, I am so delighted to have someone with me, and by the end of this show, you will know what blue turn gold really means. Maisha Collins, welcome to Dr. Sarah After Dark.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. It's been taking me so long to get you to my show. This lady is doing so many things. I don't know what I needed to get her here. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Take a deep breath. We're all friends here. That's right.
Yes.
In a zen place.
Yes.
This is unscripted. This is relaxed. So tell me more about you. What is your experience? How did you get to Blue Girls Turn Gold? What is it? I mean, we're all excited to know.
I know. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. When I met you on a tour that we went to,
Crazy Like a Fox.
That's right. Which, if you guys don't know, that was highlighting the stigma on mental health.
Yeah, mental health, ending the mental health stigma, and it's hashtag Crazy Like a Fox tour.
Yes. Right. And meeting you there, I got to talk to you a little bit, but Blue Turn Gold, it's been a journey. The reason why I think God gave me blue to gold was it was kind of more inclusive. Okay. It doesn't necessarily pigeonhole anybody out. So blue to gold is more of a transition. It was my transition of, not knowing my worth, not knowing my value, dealing with things. I was a mother at 15. I was raped in the military at 19. I was sexually harassed and terminated from a position. All these things kind of make you go back and be like, wow, I know this is not why God had me here. Mm-hmm. So I had to get to learn who Maisha was. And a lot of that was self-reflection. Those moments where I didn't have resources, I had to kind of look and see what resource did I need. A lot of times we're going through these experiences, like being a teen mom. That wasn't really a thing that people was high-fiving me on, so it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of people.
There's a stigma to being a teen mother that really focuses on the young lady.
Yes.
And the other person that's also responsible kind of just goes on with life.
Right.
But you had to endure. Was it like shame? Was it your family?
It'll
was
be
it community?
Shame, community, family. You go in a grocery store, they're looking at you like, oh my God, So there wasn't a resource that's saying, okay, we see we have a young girl that's a teen mom.
Right.
Let's see how we can help her. That never was a conversation. It was more, okay, well, they got there because of this, and now
she must be fast. She must be
oh gosh, she must be
promiscuous.
fast, promiscuous. What did you have
she's
on?
A prostitute. All horrible things.
It's all the worst things you could think of, and then you're thinking as a child. At 15 years old, you are a child. I mean, that's just what it is. Even though you may be doing things that have adult consequences, because that's really what it is. But instead of there being a circle of resources that pour into and try to propel you to be something different, it's kind of like, well, this is what you are, so that dictated that you're going to not be this. You're not going to be that. You're not going to be able to, where I am now, definitely would not be happening. You have a child now, so now there is no school. There is no, you're not going to be able to work certain hours because you have everything is limited based off of what I was told. Mm-hmm. So when I joined the military at 19 to provide for my son, because for me it was kind of like, okay, I have a son. So the 15-year-old I was let me be responsible.
Yes.
So that's what I did.
Which says a lot about you.
Right.
It says a lot to be 15 because You could have not had the child, or you could have given the child away.
Yes.
And you chose to be a mother.
Right.
And join the military and show that level of responsibility. And I think we need to stop for a minute and give you credit for that. We need to. You need to give yourself that. Because I sense that you didn't do that. Already you're telling me that these are everything I did wrong, and I'm hearing fragments in your story of everything you did right.
Yeah. And I guess that is the thing, you don't, when you're in a position where you're always trying to make sure, not necessarily proving people wrong, but trying to prove yourself right. When you get into that, it's kind of like, it's a different mindset. It's everything is different. So you really don't process things like everybody else. So where I'm like, oh, I went to the military and, I made rank and I did these things to, better have a stable life for me and my son. Usually it's just brushed over. Because it's like, okay, well, you did what you were supposed to do. Right, but
never mind the fact that you did all this, you're a teen mom. And it's like a label or a stigma attached to that.
And what I learned was, now being an adult, that stigma wasn't nothing more than what their belief systems were.
Right.
I had to unlearn that because, of course, as a teen, when most of your family is saying it, anytime you go out in public, going to school still, so you still have people like, oh, you got a baby,
right?
And it was just like, okay, so I just had to figure out a way to where I could make sure I took care of my son. So that was where the military came in, and so having my son and being able to provide for him was a big thing for me. And then of course, making rank, like I made E5 within my first 2 years.
That's amazing.
Right. So I'm like, oh, I want to go into the officer program. Like my whole mindset was like, keep going, keep going. And I get to a point, I was in the military, of course. This was probably A school, so I graduated from boot camp in November, I believe it was, because I was there longer. I had got injured, and then I went to A school in Mississippi, and that's where I was assaulted. So it's like,
So you found yourself in the military. You found something that maybe was giving something back to you that you lost. Your self-esteem may have been coming back, and you were really starting to feel like, yes,
I'm control again.
I'm in control again. You're in control, and you get to Mississippi, and the worst type of boundary violation happened. What was that?
That was being raped by a former sailor. It wasn't somebody that I was familiar with. The reason why we ended up being able to identify was just because another young lady seen him with me, because I didn't really know what he looked like. And so just going through that whole process at now 19, and in the military,
and you're still just a child. People think you turn 18, you're legal. At 19, you still think like a lot of them still play video games. I know as a college professor, I have 19-year-olds in my class, and they still really immature and naive about life.
Your experience, you don't have any experiences really besides what's around you. Family, things that are immediate in your control. You don't have those wild out experiences where, like in the military, where you're thinking you're safe, but you're really not, And then in that instance, it was more, I kind of felt like they kind of didn't understand how to, I think, the psyche and how to help people process something like that, a woman especially. So it was more like, we'll take the information down. I think I went to maybe one counseling session, and the biggest thing was for me to get away from Meridian, Mississippi, and get to my next duty station.
You wanted to avoid Meridian.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid it, but they wanted me to hurry up and get out of there too. So it's kind of like, all right, well, your next duty station, we got your orders. We're just going to go. It wasn't like, well, we're going to keep you here until we figure out what's going on, until, you know, the police do their reporting. It was none of that.
So it was somehow getting you out of there geographically gives the impression that all this can just be going away and you just sweep this under the rug and you go on and you keep performing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's what I did.
That's what you tried to do.
That's what I tried to do.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I tried to do. So literally that was 1998. So I go to my next duty station. And of course, it's interesting what the mind does, because like I said, it's like you think you're going on. So it's like, okay, I'm going on. I go to my next duty station, still, you know, hitting certain marks and, you know, exceeding expectations, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until, I mean, I have been married, went through a divorce. It really wasn't until maybe 2014 to where I even was like, wait a minute, maybe something ain't right.
And the assault happened at what age? I mean, what year?
1998.
1998. Mm-hmm. So from 1998 to 2014, you just kind of traversed your life. You got married. Mm-hmm. You moved away. You continued to serve. Mm-hmm. And you carried this pain with you.
Right.
Within that time frame, take us to a place and let us know, yeah, you might have been on the outside looking in carrying on. Maisha, what was it really like?
Man.
What were you saying to yourself during those times?
Most of the time I was just, before I'd realized that, you know, I may have been dealing with anxiety and depression and mm-hmm. post-traumatic stress, because of course I had no idea. Right. I just figured, okay, well, sometimes you know your emotions get a little whack, or you feel unbalanced.
It could be PMS.
It could be PMS, or you're too emotional, and you're a Cancer.
Right.
And, you know, I found every reason to make sense of what I was feeling. And then I really don't even know the exact point. It was just kind of like you just get tired. Like, man.
You were emotionally exhausted.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it's like no matter what, like I'm telling you, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It was like no matter what, it's like a brick wall. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
And it can't be like this. It can't. This,
I know I didn't come here for that.
I did not. Exactly. That's a good way to put it. You were not born to exist with that level of pain and anguish daily.
No.
Always having to put on a face.
To where you didn't even know it was on. Like, I didn't even know I was putting on a face. It was like, oh, I thought I was fine. And you know, even people that may have seen like, okay, we kind of know something ain't right. Mm-hmm. Because of what they have lived, it still looked okay, if that makes sense. So if I'm sitting there and I'm, you know, everybody come over, we're having dinner and we take shots, are we drinking? And it's like, okay, might you had too many shots. Nobody's really thinking like, oh my God, that might be a problem. It's kind of like, oh, this is what we do.
Covering up her pain.
Right, but then it's like, I come from a family that's what they do. So
you mask
where
the
do you
pain
learn
with
that?
Alcohol or something.
Or something. You're doing something, you know, you're doing something. You basically don't focus on the pain because there's nothing you can do about it. You know, that's what you're normally taught. Like, those things happen, you just got to get over it. So you're like, dang, well, I've been trying to get over it. I mean, 1998 to 2014, I pretty much thought I was getting over it, but then it's like, you're not. You have no idea that you haven't even
touched the surface.
You haven't even processed that it happened.
Right. You haven't even accepted the fact that this person violated me in the most inhumane way possible.
Right.
And it affects everything. Like in another show, we talked about even how when we experience trauma, our brain chemistry changes.
Wow.
Our blood cells and everything in our body, our internal working system, systemically we develop autoimmune disorders. Mm-hmm. We develop chronic illnesses. We are no longer a secure person. anxiety shows up. Sometimes social anxiety. We can't go in crowds. We don't like the dark. We don't like individuals that look a certain way. Trauma shows up when we become mothers or we get remarried. It shows up in our life choices. We navigate around the trauma as a way of dealing with it instead of facing it head on. Like, you know, it's a hurricane, you go and you move away from the hurricane, you get out of the, but within the eye of the storm, you find peace. When you've experienced a trauma, it's kind of like that hurricane. Yes, it's going on around you, but if you can get to the eye of it, you can get back to your center and find your peace. So you continue to spin around and around and around and around all the way to 2014. And then at 2014, what happened? What brought you, or where were you?
It's funny because I was doing well. I was working at Goodwill in North Georgia in Atlanta. And from the outside, I had achieved certain career goals. You know, my son was, I think he had just graduated from high school. He was going to the Air Force Academy. Like, on the outside, it's like, oh, you're doing this, look, you did. It's like, man, then why do I still feel like, it's like you can never be happy, regardless. I can go build a mountain, and it's like I'm not happy.
Still weren't happy. So
I was like, okay, so now I have to figure out why is that? And so that's when I started just trying to learn more about, that's probably more when I started going into more of the spiritual side, because even though I grew up going in and out of churches, just because my mom was, she was Catholic, so we would do Catholic church, but then we would go to Memphis to my dad's side of the family, it was Baptist. So then when I go to the military, it's Protestant, and I've been to multicultural churches, and I just never felt inclusive, and I never felt like the person that they were talking about, they were serving, didn't. I'm like, he don't serve me. That person don't serve me, because what you told me is everything that I am is the opposite of what God is. And so I had to figure out, basically learn what God was to me, and unlearn the belief system that I had.
That was condemning. See, there's a part, because I'm a Christian, and there is a part to what happens sometimes in certain religious and environments that are supposed to be spiritual, that is judgmental, that is separative, that allows someone that does something wrong to be isolated, and it encourages the pain. It also encourages those that are within the spiritual body in the religious church or organization to hide what they are feeling. They will not talk about their depression. They will not talk about that they were molested. They will not talk about they feel anxious. They will not talk about they're hearing voices. They will not talk about they want to be suicidal. They will not share anything because they're so afraid that once they do, they will be ostracized. And I'm hearing that your choices in your spirituality changed because you had, I'm assuming, a sort of a negative experience, and it kind of made you... Yeah,
it was almost like, I wouldn't say negative. It's almost like now when I look at human behaviors.
Yes.
Like you're saying, at a church, that should be a safe place. So why do people feel hurt when they should feel safe? And I just really couldn't understand that. And then I started really seeing what it was, is that these are humans in facilities that are given these titles with these, responsibilities. And I had to, basically just unlearn that. Like, it's not about a human and a title. It's about your individual relationship with God. And it's not going to look like, it didn't look nothing like what I was being shown anyway. So I had to be like, well, doggone, like, my God is more, like, my God is love. My God is compassionate. And, the whole point is that you help me through this, because it doesn't make sense that you're saying, we were put here. We don't have no control over what we do, and we're naturally going to be sinners, but then you hold that against me. It doesn't make sense to me. So,
and our God is a God of mercy.
right.
That we're not expected to be perfect beings, that we make mistakes. God created us. He knows everything Sarah's going to do wrong. He knows that Sarah's going to go out, buy too many shoes, and then ask for forgiveness.
Right.
He already knows that.
And then you're sitting there like,
that's real.
it's not a surprise to what's going on.
No, he knows I'm going to do that. It's my spiritual weakness.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like you have to see what it is. What is it to you that's making you happy or not happy? And the thing was, it wasn't really connected to people. And that's what I was doing. It was like, man, well, it was always like I felt a certain way, but it was because of how people made me feel, but it was because I took on the belief systems. I can't be upset with somebody if they taught me to believe what they believe and now I believe it. I can't be mad. I just have to figure out, why did I believe that? What was it about this situation that made me feel? Because at one point, I mean, as a teen mom, I never thought, oh, I'm going to have a nonprofit. Oh, I'm going to write a book.
No, I never saw myself where I am now either.
Exactly. So
I was not set up for this.
No.
I was set up to fail. I was set up to fail.
So it's like when you look, it's like, so who did you have to look around to be like, you know what, this person is going to show me how to be Dr. Sarah? You really didn't have that. It was kind of like something you had to find in yourself, right?
Yeah. I think that when I see myself on this platform and people come to me and they hug me, I saw your show, I got therapy because of it, or my clients come to me and say, I'm so grateful that you are, you know, my therapist and that you're helping me or whatever. I say, God sure has a sense of humor because I was the least likely one. I've said that before. I was not the brightest cookie in the bunch. I was not that person. You know, I idealized everybody else. I stayed in the background. I was comfortable letting everybody else go ahead of me instead of really knowing that I have gifts and talents and that everybody may not like you. And Oprah's talked about that. Everybody may not like you. And it's okay.
That's the other part.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But God has something for you, no matter what that is.
Yep.
And here you find yourself having a nonprofit. What is that? Tell us all about that. I know we need a whole show just on that.
So So Blue Girls Turn Gold, the nonprofit organization. The reason why I started is because I you know how they always say, be the change that you want to see. And so I was like, okay, if I'm not one of those people. It's like, when I was a teen mom, I didn't have resources. I'm not one of those people. I'm more like, this is what I found out while I was going through this. So let me see how I can help other people because somebody else needs this information because I needed it. You know, so with the organization, in so many ways, we touch so many people just on changing their mindset because that was the biggest thing for me. So like with the youth, we do a workshop called Genius Is, and that's just planting the seed that I didn't have, that as a youth, like you naturally have a mustard seed that God gave you. Like it's something that nobody else has, that only you have, that you don't really need any training on. You just have to nurture it. So just me talking to the kids gives them that foundation, which is going to therefore change their mindset as they grow older, so they don't really feel like they have to fit into certain categories like how I did. And then with young women and older women, like with the anthologies, Blue Girl Turn Gold, they actually write. It's like a therapy, so they write and share their stories, their experiences, what we call them. So their experiences, how they're transitioning in this experience, because really life is just an experience, and it goes back to the whole God, God or higher power, of however people resonate. You weren't put here for no reason.
Correct.
So when you feel that unloved feeling, which we have felt, or that depression or the anxiety, it's like, it's really God telling you to push harder in what you're supposed to be doing. Because a lot of times we're molded and we're moving for everybody else. We're not moving for ourselves. We're trying to prove this person wrong, or I'm trying to be a good mom to, my kids, or I'm trying to be a good sister and I want to make my mom and dad proud. And it's like,
we're just
but
trying
what
to
did
do
you
what's
want to do?
expected of us. Right.
And it's like, but what really makes you happy?
And I talked about that openly, and we were on tour together. You know, I allowed myself to go ahead and be very vulnerable in front of audiences, which is something that was new to me. And one of the things that I had after I lost my mother, after I lost my husband, I realized that I had an identity crisis. Like, I literally was my mother's daughter, my husband's wife, and my children's mother. Even though I had gone through school and I'd done all these great things, I literally did not know my passion. I didn't know who I was. And until I really started following that, I just feel like the heavens opened up for me.
Yes.
And then I started meeting people like you.
Just right in your path.
And it was amazing. And my life is amazing. And it was like I had to make changes in order to be open to what God wanted for me.
Yes.
And I was close to that because I was insecure. I didn't have confidence. And I did not feel that, okay, this is the big one. You do not have to be all there and perfect to move forward with your vision.
Yes.
You can
That
be
part.
anxious, depressed,
Broken.
lacking self-confidence,
Yes.
and still be in the game.
You in the game, and everybody that you touch, and I'm getting chill bumps, and everybody that you touching is in the game, even
Yes.
though you're still processing what you need to process.
I thought I had to have it all together
Nope, I'm
before
like
I could
this.
do anything. This has to be right, and I can't have any depressive thoughts, and I
Yeah.
can't be anxious, and I got to be confident, and I've got to have all that before I talk about anything, because I never want to be a fraud. I've met people that were frauds. I've endured people that were fraudulent in my life. They would present one thing to society, and then they were horrible to me.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's what the message that was given to me, like, your experience in your growth is actually still mentorship to somebody else.
Yes. That's powerful. That's so powerful. The other day, I just wanted to tell you this. The other day I made a post, and it was more about not necessarily being sad, but being overwhelmed as you walk into your path, because it is
Yes.
overwhelming. Like you said, the doors open up, all the things that you were praying for, it just come right to you, and you're like,
Yes.
that's what this feels like. And it's kind of addictive.
Just like that. Right?
Yeah, it's just addictive, because it's like, it's kind of scary, because it's like, it's really been you the whole time, but you didn't have it up here, and you weren't living that way to navigate and pull that stuff toward you. But these people, like, clearly I've been waiting for you. Like, you're a part of my path. I really feel that way. And when you're walking in who you are, like you were talking about, when you go through trauma, people don't understand. That's a cellular level that sometimes those triggers you can't prepare for. Sometimes things happen here that's like, because you're trying to have it all together, and it's like,
Right.
oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to react that way because I'm gold now. No, I'm human. So I'm still going to have those.
You're still going to have those days. You're still going to have those moments. And when you start recognizing what your triggers are, you don't necessarily have to avoid them.
Right.
But you know how to adequately and therapeutically and in a healthy way process them. Like, for me, the trigger for me was rejection and betrayal. Like, if you stopped speaking to me or you betrayed me, then that was my thing, because I experienced that in my life.
Yep.
So now when it happens, I know it's a lesson.
Yep.
I know it doesn't take me out. I recently
It's just
had a
like,
betrayal.
oh, okay.
This last week, you can look
Yeah,
at
I
me
know
like,
that.
hey, I'm
Yeah.
betrayed. I learned from
Yes.
it. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I had to process it, and just that. I had to breathe, and I had to think, and I said, you know what I did? I left myself open, and I enabled it, because my mind the entire time was telling me what I needed to know about this person.
Your intuition.
But I just want to keep going, because I always want to see the good in people. And you found light after your darkness. When you said, this person did a horrible thing to me, he could have taken my life from me.
Yeah.
He would have taken my life from me. But instead, I transitioned that pain into Blue Girls Turn Gold.
Right.
And it's a nonprofit. Now, what else are you also, in addition to the nonprofit? I know you mentioned the anthology. Are there any other things that you're doing right now? Anything coming up in terms of your Blue Girl Turn Gold platform?
Yep. We, let's see, coming up November 9th. So both of us, we have 3 volumes. The first 2 volumes are on audiobook. So we're going to do like a listening party.
Awesome.
What I've learned is a lot of times hearing the stories, it's like, you know, when you see somebody all glammed up, it's that whole I don't know what you've been through thing. But when you hear what somebody's been through and it's like you feel their story, it brings a whole nother energy. And so what I want to do is have a listening party with which the authors, I'll let them select, you know, who want it, because it's still a healing process. A lot of people, you know, even writing in the first book, you can go back and some of those triggers are still there because this is something that you actually lived through. You know, when you go back and look at some of these stories, some of the women have, you know, literally gone crazy and had to go to mental hospitals. And now you see them in their own business. You know, it's just like seeing the powerful transition. So in November, that's what I wanted to do with the listening party.
But you're bringing light to this, and that's the important thing. And I want to tell you, you know, I'm always appreciative to my guests, but you are special. And you have to promise me that you'll come back.
I will. Well, let's
You have to do that. Right.
I will. I will.
Yes,
I definitely would like to come and more celebration and upbeat.
Yes,
I get in my feelings a lot, but I know that
this is what we do. We cry here. I forgot the tissue today, so forgive me. But we usually do. I cry with my guests. This is what Dr. Sarah After Dark is all about. It's about taking the lashes off and the glam off and just being who you are and being transparent. And there's somebody watching that's going to make a change because of you. Literally. Yes. They're going to do that. And I'm just so grateful that you were willing to come today and be vulnerable and share with us and just be who you are. And so definitely make your way back.
I will.
And I'll leave that as an open invitation.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
This has been one of those great episodes, another one of our great episodes here at Dr. Sarah After Dark. And be sure to stay tuned and watch more Dr. Sarah After Dark next week.